The Range Rover Sport is one of those cars that's often been copied but never been beaten. Sure, you get performance and luxury SUVs from BMW, Mercedes-Benz and Porsche. They might be more powerful and more expensive, but they can't quite match the Range Rover for its sheer depth of talent. And if you don't believe me, well, join me now on a drive in the new Range Rover Sport. In a much shorter time frame, the Sport has become somewhat of a British legend, much like the Spitfire. Range Rover are keen to draw comparisons between the two, not least of all because of their Britishness. The manufacturer is claiming that their new release is as tough, as fast and as manoeuvrable as a Spitfire, with a similar dose of attitude and a lot more comfort. Or maybe it's just a subtle reminder to their German rivals about doing battle with British machinery. The Range Rover Sport is naturally an imposing thing, but its designers have done a great job of disguising some of its bulk with some clean lines and clever detailing. And good colour combinations means it's more classy than aggressive. Matching the promise of its all-round ability is a look that should please most people. It may not be as heavy-set as the outgoing Sport, but it's still a car with presence, and options like the contrasting roof colour make it seem even lower and more slight than it really is. It looks very much like the regular Range Rover, but the styling tweaks have given it an athletic edge that suits the Sport name. Of course, this is a large part of the reason why anybody buys a Range Rover Sport. Real comfort, effortless luxury, and a driving position that allows you to quite literally and figuratively look down on other road users. There is a long list of standard and other features to run through in here, but the thing I like the most, the fact that they've pared down on all the switches, and the interface is so much more elegant. Compared to the old interior, it's an absolute lesson in minimalism, with only the most frequently used controls being deemed worthy enough to have their own switches. Everything else, including the infotainment system, navigation and multi-camera park system, is operated by the touchscreen setup. Matching the luxury and spec is top tech, including virtual driver instruments on a TFT screen, a rear entertainment system, and an automated tailgate, allowing more convenient access to the cavernous cargo space. If you want brute force to go with your luxury driving experience, best opt for the V8. The supercharged V6 has got 250 kilowatts, 450 newton meters, and it does get up to some serious speed, but the power delivery is somewhat restrained. It takes a while to gather itself together and get through the revs. But it is very smooth, and it's helped largely by a very good 8-speed automatic gearbox. For those who dare take their million-rand SUV off-road, the V6 is probably the more manageable option because the torque delivery won't be as manic as the V8. But let's say you buy yourself a Range Rover Sport and you want to explore its capabilities, but off-roading is not quite your thing. Well, because of that aluminium chassis, this car is now 400 kilograms lighter, and Land Rover say that makes it more nimble and more dynamic than ever. And the best way to discover that for yourself is at a racetrack. Or at least a very large, very empty parking lot or similar expanse of tar. The Sport doesn't perform miracles insofar as becoming the most involving thing on the road, but what it does have is some incredible electronics that manage to keep its admittedly reduced weight in check. By breaking individual wheels, continuously varying the dampers, and using an active rear diff, the Sport manages to show impressive ability when driving it in a way that no SUV should really be driven. And the good news is that none of this extra performance talent is at the expense of what a Range Rover has always been excellent at: off-road driving. The terrain response system has been updated, and it now will make suggestions when it feels you need to drop into low range or raise the vehicle's ride height as it sees fit. Of course, it's still got the usual settings, so when you're in the countryside, you select grass and gravel. When you're in the desert, you select sand. When you're in the jungle, you select mud ruts. And when you're in the mountains, you select rock crawl. But they don't seem to have a setting for off-road course set up in an abandoned aircraft. Built as much for the sheer spectacle of it as it was to show off some of the Range Rover Sport's obstacle clambering abilities, the converted DC-10 gave anyone who drove through it a chance to tick off an item from their bucket list that they didn't know they had until that very moment. The plane itself didn't present too much in the way of challenges, but it did show off this car's impressive climbing ability and made full use of its 33 and 31 degree approach and departure angles. Even stopping halfway down this ramp didn't cause the Sport to break a sweat. Back on the ground and in the mud, we were reminded of just how good this 4x4 is, and also tried out its new wade depth sensor, which tells you how deep you're going and will sound alarms if you're about to breach the car's 850mm wading depth. The Range Rover Sport is a superb package, not because it's universally good-looking or supremely powerful, but because everything it does well. It's comfortable and easy to use on the daily commute, and for those times where you want a change of scenery, it'll happily and very easily take you to the kinds of places that very few cars on this planet can. And it is a very satisfying drive. The 3-litre supercharged V6 motor is a new addition to the Range Rover lineup and provides good power and a smooth delivery, helped by the 8-speed gearbox. The Sport remains an incredibly capable package with style, comfort, technology and pure off-road talent. For proper performance though, rather opt for the V8.